I have a seventh grade story. You want to hear a seventh grade story? Great story. You're gonna one of those wow factors. Really cool story. Again, as you remember, when we were in seventh grade, we were 12 years old, and I started. Well, actually, I was delving into the prestidigitation. That's a long word for magic. I was performing magic or being interested in all everything involved in being a magician. So I yeah, bless please, Grandpa Gary. Oh no, it's not going to end. Um, so I had books and I was studying on my own in my bedroom and in the bathroom in front of the mirror and doing coin magic and learning card magic and all of the above. Um, and I ended up meeting a a classmate, Steve, also a seventh grader, and he also did magic. Well, he was even more advanced than I was. Even as a seventh grader, he was quite the accomplished magician as a youngster. And he had Magnus, welcome back, with the Nora. Wait, is that Nora? That's right. Yeah. Profile picture. And he actually held magic classes at his home after school. He also had a partner, and his name was John Fox. I remember to this day. Steve Wheeler and John Fox. John was in eighth grade. He was a year older than we were. And he invited the kids, us kids, over to his house after school, and his mom would make lunch. She would make sandwiches and Kool-Aid, and he would have a an instruction magic class and show us, sleight of hand and so on. And then his mom would feed us while we're in the middle of the class. Well, to make a long story shorter, Steve never stopped well, nor did I, up until I was in high school. And then I just ran out of money and I kind of couldn't afford building my own illusions or buying any more. So Steve continued in magic all through junior high, high school. And then after, I even remember in high school, Steve would enter talent shows and he would always, take first place because he was levitating students, girls, pretty girls on the stage in high school and making them disappear, 15 feet off the ground. And it was just amazing the talent that he had. He had a bird aviary in his backyard. I used to go over to his house. Like I said, I'd go over to his house and he'd show me. And his dad helped him build this bird cage in the backyard about 50 feet long and 8 feet high. And he raised doves, different colored doves, white, black, brown, gray, etc. And he went on. I lost touch with him after high school. Well, little did I know, Steve continued his magic, and he grew exponentially during this time. And then I got married eventually as an adult. I was married once before, and I was with my first wife and my two kids, who are now older than you, Jeremy. My daughter's 35, my son's 39. We were there with them as kids, and we were at SeaWorld in San Diego. So we had the map out, and we're looking at all the attractions, and places, things to do. And they had, these performances on these mobile stages throughout the park. One of the performances was Magic on Ice. And I thought, I was I used to do magic. I still do some. I delve into it a little bit. And so that attracted me, and I said, "Oh, honey, we got to go to the magic show." So it was like, it was only 2 o'clock, and we were at the Shamu show, and the magic show was at 4, I'm guessing. So after the Shamu show, we had a half an hour to burn, and we walked over to the stage, and we got our seat. It was like mobile seating, aluminum, seats. And then the stage was in front of us, and the curtains were drawn, and it was an ice skating stage, like a half circle, and it was all ice. And magic was performed on ice skates. So I'm waiting for the show to start. We're all waiting. We got our food and our drinks, and the announcer comes on the speaker, and it's the music and the dramatic music in the background, and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as we," I'm making this up. We welcome Steve Wheeler and Magic on Ice. And I went, "What? Steve Wheeler? That's Steve from 7th grade." And here he is in San Diego performing at SeaWorld with his entourage on ice skates. And he's got this elaborate production. It looks like Cirque du Soleil. It was absolutely beautiful, just high tech lights. It was, these gorgeous models on ice skates, and he occasionally has professional ice skate, performers there to perform with him, and I was just blown away. And sure enough, when he came up on stage, there Steve Wheeler was, a grown man, but the same guy, the same kid. And I thought, imagine that. Steve Wheeler, of all people. You can go on YouTube and look up, or go to even more so, just type in Steve Wheeler Magic on Ice, and you'll see his website, and look at the production that he has together. He travels all over the world. He travels to Thailand, Japan, USA, Russia, all over the world, and performs his show. I wonder if it was Steve. It wouldn't surprise me, Jeremy, if that's who it was. Who else performs on ice? There may be another, I don't know, but it's just incredible. And guess who his manager is? John Fox. No kidding. I was like, whoa. So back to SeaWorld. I see his show, and of course I can't be waving my hands, And I told my wife, "Honey, I've got to meet Steve. I got to reunite with him." So afterwards, we went around the back, and they had a gated, fence up, and security, and a locked door, and the whole thing. And I told the security guard who I was and my relationship with Steve. And he's like, "Hold on a second." So he went back to the trailer, and Steve came out of the trailer, and he's trying to look like, "Who is that?" And then I'm like waving my hand, and he's like, "Gary MacKay." And I said, "Steve Wheeler." And he's like, "So what'd you think?" And I said, "Oh my gosh." And I was thinking, unbelievable. It figures that Steve. And then you'll see on his website, it introduces Steve, and apparently he was like recognized by the American Magician Society at 19 years old. So that's my 7th grade story. I met Steve in 7th grade. He taught me, what there's a sleight called the French drop. It's where you take a coin in your fingers and you grab it and make it disappear, and that's called a French drop. Well, Steve was the first person that taught me that. Actually, it might have been a book, but I'm going to give credit to Steve. Yep. That's something. 7th grader, 12-year-old. Unreal. And then there's one more. Let's see. I should have stuck with the magic thing. Could have been performing with Steve. or been part of his entourage in some capacity, right? Yeah, you can go to his website and see him. I searched him on YouTube, and I was getting other than magic on of Steve, other than Steve Wheeler's show. Other people posting, similar names and so on. So I found out that if you just search it on Google, you'll get his website, and that is more. Um, you'll be more than likely to hit on him if you just look for his website. So, but that's the name, Steve Wheeler and Magic on Ice, or Steve Wheeler's Magic on Ice. Crazy. Oh, the other story I was going to tell you. Same high school, San Diego, California, Madison High School, not Madison, Wisconsin. Madison High School in San Diego. The Madison Warhawks, as a matter of fact. Same high school. I got another student that ended up making himself prominent. And that is, have you ever heard of Major Garrett with the Independent Press, IP, in the news, interviewing Donald Trump and other prominent figures? It's not a rank, it's actually his name, Major Garrett. I'm sure somebody's heard of him before. Well, that was another fellow student. I remember being in the AV, the audio visual club, and then in high school, he was part of the newspaper, the school newspaper, and so on. Yeah, CBS, exactly. That's he's either CBS or he's also Independent Press, the IP. And during the Trump first era there, his first term, um, Major was always up front there with the rest of the reporters, interviewing. And sometimes Trump would refer to him by name. Go ahead, Major. He knew him by name. And when you see him, he's just the older guy that I remember in high school. Same face, same everything, just the older, as what happens to us when we get older. Yeah. Major Garrett and Steve Wheeler. Unbelievable. That's awesome, though. You can Google him; he'll pop right up. And I mean, who else has a name Major? Major. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I have a couple short videos on my channel of me doing some multiplying billiard balls in between my fingers. It's kind of a random short that I put together. And Steve didn't teach me those. I actually started out in my bedroom with these little itty bitty quarter-inch red painted wood balls, and would multiply them between my fingers and, barely be able to hold on to them between my fingers. And the short video. Oh, did you see that one? Yeah, and I think those are about the largest they get. Those are like inch and a half or inch and a quarter. And they're they stretch my fingers to the max. And thank God they're rubber and sticky because I can hold on to them. They're super balls is what they are. They bounce, not quite as high as a super ball, but they're that material, dense rubber. Your only trick is making a cheeseburger disappear. Badoom. Psh. Now you see it, now you don't. Be strong in your fingers and joints. Creed, you're 19. So your dad has background. So there you go. You got a great role model. Awesome. Haha. So you want to get into the aviation side of the that's awesome. Bro, that'd be a good gig. You see there? You'll be a Marine, they'll train you to be a Marine, of course. You'll be able to uh, fight with the best of them. But at the same time, your job will be on a flight with a flight crew. I think that would be a cool gig because that'll take you wherever, if you're deployed, you're going to be your primary job's going to be making sure the aircraft are, good to go. I think that'd be an awesome gig during wartime or peacetime. I think that would be a really cool department to be involved in. Yeah. Well, I'm assuming because your dad's in the military or was, um, that you're only 19, you're probably in, the best shape that a 19-year-old can be in. If you're not, get into shape or the Marines will get you there. That's for sure. Yeah, I've never been involved in that, area, but just from what I observed, it's like the motor T division in the Marines, motor transportation. We work with them directly as a corpsman. We had a motor T guy assigned to us to be our driver for our Humvee, the Humvee slash ambulance over in Iraq. And yeah, he was part of our. He was with us the whole 7 months in our room, and then occasionally he would head back out to his group down on the other side of the base to be with his guys, the motor transportation. But they're you're all Marines, and if they need you, they can deploy you, and you can be out with a unit, on patrol or uh, whatever. But otherwise, their focus was, vehicle maintenance and making sure that they were, runnable and they were running on the road. So yeah, if they need you, you can always be out on patrol, but at the same time, when something needs attention, like an aircraft, then that's your job is oop, to make sure your flight crew is up and running. Just put up with the BS, if you want to call it that. The yelling and screaming and the hooting and the hollering and the discipline that they're going to give you. There's a purpose to it. Don't try to figure it out. Just do it and put up with it. And yeah, learn to love it. And there is a method for their madness, and the reason for their madness is they're they're making sure you're good to go with what you do in the Marines, whether you're an aviation mechanic, a grunt, motor T, whatever. They're making sure that you know your job extremely well. And the second thing, they want to make sure you get home. And that's the reason why they're doing what they're doing. You may not be able to figure it out at first, but it's all about attention to detail, whether it's your job or your safety. And that's the two things they're trying to do. They're trying to make sure you know your job as well as you can, better than anybody else. And they want to make sure you get home. And it all has to do with that. All the yelling, screaming, physical fitness, knowing things inside and out. the way you dress, the way you eat, the way you present yourself, all of it has to do with knowing your job well and getting you home. It's the truth. Yep. And in the process, they make warriors out of you guys. I mean, extremely fit. Here, just some more motivation. As a medical department myself, I'm doc, I'm corpsman, and I would assess you guys, and take your vital signs and your blood pressure and do it all, give you immunizations and make you guys pass out with needles and all of the above. And yes, Marines still do pass out from getting needles in their arm. We put football helmets on you after you went unconscious and take pictures just to show you afterwards and make fun of you. True story. Um, but yeah, and all your buddies won't let you down about that. But in the process of doing physicals on you guys, I was in awe, literally, as a civilian paramedic, as an older guy joining the military. I was 37 when I joined the Navy. I started doing assessments on Marines and fellow Navy, guys, but I got an opportunity to be, as you heard, to be assigned to the 123 Marines out of Houston, Texas. And so in the process of getting you guys ready for Iraq, we were rotating you through and starting your immunizations and so on and doing physicals. And I was like taking you guys' heart rate. And I thought, wait a minute, I must be counting wrong, as I'm looking at the second hand on the clock. And I'm counting your pulse, your heart rate. And I thought, holy crap. I was getting like 46 when I was counting. And I thought, is this real? This guy's got a heart rate of 46. Now, if that doesn't mean anything to you, a normal heart rate for a resting adult or a resting guy like your age is like 60 to 80. That's normal for a normal person, 60 to 80. And I'm getting 46. I'll bet you Josh's heart rate is still in the somewhere around there if he's still that active. Get a resting heart rate, and it's like half what a normal person is. And what that means is you're in such good shape that your heart only needs to beat 46 times a minute to pump the blood from your head to your toes. And you're talking, walking, eating, peeing, pooping like anybody else. And the heart rate is just so relaxed, in such good shape. It just needs to beat 46 times a minute to pump the blood. My resting heart rate is probably in the 70s or the 60s. Yeah, so they'll get you to that point where you're in the most incredible shape compared to the average 19-year-old out there. And it's really something to, hold your head high about, or to, thank God for, or thank the Marines for, because they're like Josh said, they're going to break you and rebuild you, but you're going to be in the most incredible shape. And they expect a lot out of you too, because of that. The numbers that were required from me in my run, and in my PT tests, physical fitness tests, are a lot different being then, a 37-year-old. The numbers that I needed to make in order to, meet my requirements, and I could exceed those and then some, even as an older guy. But the numbers they require from you are like, whoa. I couldn't get near the numbers that a 19-year-old, was required to, to make. But it's pretty impressive, really impressive. The loads that you're going to carry, the amount of weight you're going to be humping is just mind-boggling. It really is. And no wonder when you guys, how sharp you guys look after boot camp. And once you're, doing your job, you're going to be that way on a daily basis. Look at Josh. He's 43 years old and he's still cranking out numbers that are mind-boggling. It's really cool. And to be part of that. Yeah, Josh. Yeah, I wonder. Well, it's incredible. I could tell you your heart rate was at least 20 plus beats faster than what it normally is, and then some. It was probably double, during a firefight. But because of the shape you're in is why you're able to, maintain your that physical fitness that's required, to have your heart rate elevate, to a point. Believe you me, I'll bet you your heart rate was not near what a scared, untrained, out of shape, 19-year-old in the civilian world, behind a laptop, playing a video game is. Yeah, I remember the Marines or another fellow corpsman were like, you never done an assessment on a Marine before, Doc? And I'd be going, dude, this first time for me. I had to take their pulse twice to make sure I wasn't making a mistake, with my numbers. I'm like, holy moly. But then I put a needle in their arm to give to give them an immunization of some sort, and they're scared to death. Not all of them, but some of them. It's just that fear of needles thing. And then once I, get the needle in their arm and I take it out, they get all pale and sweaty and they end up passing out on the ground. And I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you guys were tough. Well, that's a different story when you start doing medical procedures on people, but it always makes the headlines, when that incredibly in shape Marine with a resting heart rate of 46, all of a sudden loses his color in his face and he becomes sweaty like a pig and he falls out on the floor and everyone catches him and lowers him to the ground. And then we quickly put a football helmet on him and take a picture of him while he's unconscious on the ground. And then when he comes to moments later and all the Marines are razzing him, we show him the picture of, or cell phone of him, on the ground with the football helmet on his head. Here, let me share a little bit about my mindset in medicine. And you might be surprised, and maybe you won't. But I remember, preparing when I was in the Navy, and I was going to work. And I'm always thinking of what if I do get deployed? And it wasn't a matter of what if it was when, after 9/11 happened. Because the scuttlebutt, the rumors were rampant, and they weren't rumors. People were getting deployed, and it was just a matter of time before I got that phone call, which I eventually got. So during that time when I had not received the phone call yet, I was always rehearsing in my mind, trying to think, what's it going to be like? How's it going to be compared to what I already know? In the civilian world, how is medicine going to be different? What situation was I going to be put in? How was I going to handle myself? That part I didn't know because I wasn't assigned. There's really nothing you can do in the civilian world or even in the military world during peacetime that can prepare you for actual contact, you know, where you're put in harm's way. You can train, as you know, Josh, back in peacetime and go through the motions, and doing your drills. And yes, that does prepare you, to be ready for, the real thing. But there's nothing like having, somebody that is armed in front of you, trying to do, the same thing that you're trying to do. And that is protect yourself and or eliminate one another. So I was always rehearsing that in my head. I wasn't assigned to the green side, to the Marines, until I got deployed. So I didn't have that experience, that bond, with a group of guys on a regular basis. At least not with the Marines. I had that relationship with the medical side, but that was different. So when I got deployed and I got put with a group of Marines, I had to kind of learn on the job training, what and how these guys thought and the routine that they were in. And I was placed with them, so I was required to follow real quickly and ask questions and observe. So I was, even when I was on patrol, I was rehearsing in my head, okay, what if this happens? What am I going to do? How am I going to keep myself safe? And I learned that my Marines are my best friends. They're my resources. That's how I'm going to stay alive, is the Marines, and rely on them to keep me safe while I'm trying to do my job. But the mindset that I have, that I was keeping, that I even have today, is, I know my job, and when I'm presented to do something for somebody or take care of an injury or an illness or whatever, it's like that's my focus. And as far as who it is that I'm doing it to, I really could care less about. I have to. It's like, Josh, if you were my friend or my buddy, my shipmate, or my, I, I'd have no choice but to get to know you because I'm with you all the time. But when you get hurt, it's like I get blinders on, and I really don't, I'm not focusing on who you are as a person. That's just a distraction for me when I'm doing my job. It really is. And I never focused on the actual person. At least I tried not to. The screaming and the yelling and the fighting and your resistance and everything that goes along with human behavior is part of my job. And you learn to do things to overcome that. The screaming and the yelling, the physical resistance. I use my resources. I use my police officers, my firefighters, to help me control the situation so that I can do my job. And my job is to, stop the bleeding, breathe for you, start an IV, give you medications, make you unconscious so I can handle you. That sounds morbid, but it's the truth. We have medications that I can literally paralyze you with. I can take away your respiratory drive so you're not breathing anymore. And it's okay because I know how to breathe for you. For you, it's horrendous. Can you imagine being given a drug that doesn't do anything to your consciousness? You're aware of everything, but you're not breathing anymore? Can you imagine getting a medication that takes away your respiratory drive, your ability to breathe, but it does nothing to your consciousness. And you're looking, you're watching, and you're aware, but you can't even speak. You can't even take a breath. That sounds, I mean, for me even, it sounds like, whoa. That would be scary. So there's other medications that we give along with that to take away your memory and your ability to be aware. And we call it snowing you, meaning we literally give you drugs that get you high. So that consciousness, you start to lose that, whoa, you basically, it makes you drunk and then some. And the ability to remember what I did to you, you don't have that memory after I'm all done with you. Thank God for those types of drugs. So you see, my focus is just to I got to take care of something, and whatever it takes to take care of that, I need to do to you. So you know what? Knowing about you personally and your kids and your family, God forbid that is in my brain while I'm trying to treat you and do those things to you. It's like, I don't want to know that. I really don't want to know you personally because it hurts. You see? So medical personnel, we take on it's a different animal. People say it's morbid, or it's cruel, to think that way. No, it's not. Believe you me. I don't want to know. I got enough to worry about. And it's not easy to take care of you sometimes. And so when I'm emotionally getting involved, and now my best friend that I've spent the last 7 months with now all of a sudden is hurt or is dying. Can you imagine? It's hard enough taking care of you and not knowing you. Believe me, the emotions and all that gets in it gets in my way. I have memories of, that puts me in tears to this day. So to know you personally, I'd rather detach myself from that. And when it comes to being at the fob, and having downtime, it's like, I hate to say it, but I'd rather be by myself and decompress and deal with it another way. I used to go over to my interpreters and the guys from Albania and Yugoslavia's hooch and spend time with them because I wasn't directly involved with them. They were somebody else. Now my unit, that was when I was with them was another story. We did our job well and we knew what each other did, and we sometimes didn't even have to talk to each other. It was just automatic. Like, when you know your job, you guys have a different way of communicating, and sometimes it's not verbal. You just know your job and things get done. You already know what the other guy's doing, where they're going, what you need to do to take care of business. It's the same in the medical field. My best partner, it's like we hardly had to even speak to each other. It was just automatic. Everybody knew what the next step was. But when we were done with our job, we kind of had our own world to live in. We did talk to each other, but as a family man, on that note, on that side of it, it's like I had my life to live after my job was complete, and I had my wife to call and my finances to take care of, and just things, my regular life responsibilities I had to take care of while I wasn't working, or the phone call that I had, that I was talking to or whatever. Now over in Iraq, we didn't have those, luxuries, but as you know. But yeah, I used to tell my senior, all due respect, senior, but I'm not disassociating myself with you guys because I don't like you. I just I just don't want to get to know you guys, on a personal level because, if you end up getting your head split open and I'm taking care of you, I told him, you know that I know my job well, and I'm going to take care of you as a medical personnel, just like I would my parent. In the medical field, they always tell you, you take care of your patients just like you would your own family. And that's what you do. The compassion, everything is there. And it all comes out when my job is required. But afterwards, I kind of forget who you were. It's the truth. I'd rather it be that way. And so if I was a corpsman, with a group of guys, of course I'd become, the esprit de corps and everything that goes with it. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it would be different. That was the part I never really got a chance to be a part of. And then the emotions and everything that went along with afterwards, might have been, maybe that would have just been part of it. I would be forced to become, intertwined with the rest of you and, eat pee, poop, and tell stories with each other because you had no other choice but to do that. But yeah, can you relate with the, you have a skill and you've practiced it so much that after a while you don't have to think about it. It's just automatic. You know what to do. You know what the gameplay is. And everyone else around you knows the same, so you're kind of just operating on auto drive. And things get done. Hopefully, and when things go wrong, you adapt and overcome and do what you got to do, and it's the same. But on a personal level, getting to know each other, I kind of disassociated myself with others, and I met some resistance coming from the civilian world into the military with that. I was already older, and I had a mindset and a routine that was a little different than the military, and the guys actually kind of, I'm thinking of one guy in particular. He was actually the senior corpsman because he had more time in his rate, although he was 10 years plus younger than I was. And he used to kind of give me crap about not being part of the group. And he actually said something that kind of pissed me off. Was I was hanging out with the enemy. And I was like, what? Maybe I mentioned that before. So what are you talking about? And he's referring to the Iraqi interpreters. It was kind of I don't like using the word race anymore, but it was kind of a racial thing that he said. At least I took it that way. You know what? Just because they're Iraqi, they're the enemy? They were our interpreters. They were getting paid to interpret for us. And I'm good friends with one right now in Michigan. He no longer lives in Iraq, in Baghdad. He lives with his family and his wife in Michigan. And I think, he's saying that about him. What the? Only because I wasn't part of the group at night, when we weren't working or when we had downtime. Well, we're always working in the medical field. There is no time off. We didn't get breaks. That's just the way it is in the medical field. If somebody comes to the door and knocking with a laceration that needs to be sewed up, then you're woken up at dark 30 to take care of somebody. Yeah, as a matter of fact, on that note, that drug is called succinylcholine, SUCC, succinic, Inylcholine, succinylcholine, and it's a paralytic. It's a short-acting paralytic, meaning exactly what it says. The action of the drug is short, so you can paralyze somebody, but you need to reparalyze them after a certain amount of time. And some of them are longer acting than others. The one we carried in the ambulance was short acting. So I forgot what was the duration of that drug. I forget. But you had to redose them in order to keep that effect on board. Otherwise, they'd wake up and start fighting you and pulling things out of their mouth and out of their arms because they're now aware of what's going on and awake, which is a difficult patient to manage compared to somebody that's unconscious, asleep. Those are easy patients because they're unconscious and they're asleep. So, they're just laying there. You don't have to fight them. You don't have to battle. You don't have to ask them. They're easy. They're easy to manage. Yeah, pretty wild, huh? To hear, my thinking and me describe that about somebody. You think, oh my gosh, I hope I'm never in your hands. It's like, no, no, no. You'll be in good hands if you're in my hands. But it's just that whole medical part, sounds scary. And it is to me, even to be on that side, to have it done to me. But when I'm now having procedures done to myself, like surgeries and or medications and procedures, um, I kind of did different. I have a different mindset. I can kind of think, okay, I know what they're going to do to me because I used to do it. But to actually experience that, I'm a human too. So I ask them a little more detailed questions when I'm about to have procedures done, that a normal layperson might not ask. So are you the one that's going to intubate me? Put a tube in my trachea? And they're like, yep. And I'm like, well, do a good job. I used to be a paramedic. And they're like, oh, really? I said, yeah. I said, don't break my front teeth. They're like, oh, no, we use and they name some instrument that they use, which is more high speed and controlled in a controlled environment in the operating room, where we didn't have that kind of stuff out in the field, where we had to make sure we didn't break somebody's front teeth when we put a tube in their trachea, with the device that we're holding with our hand, where they actually have a machine that helps and a TV monitor that they can use to help guide, that tube into my trachea while I'm laying flat on an operating table, in an operating room. Where in my case, you're on my gurney in the back of an ambulance, or you're on your back on the carpeted floor in a living room. A much different situation than being in a more controlled environment in a hospital. Yeah, it was definitely a Mr. Toad's wild ride being in the emergency pre-hospital setting. Bizarre. You put in positions that are just unheard of. Sometimes you've got an entrapped person sitting in a car, and the firefighters are tearing apart a car trying to get the person out. And while they're doing that, you're thinking, how can I help that person, even though he's got a steering wheel that's pinning him against, the inside of the car, or he's upside down in a vehicle. Is there anything I can do, even though they're in the most incredible, weird, upside down position, And the answer is either yes or no. And if the answer is yes, then you end up on your head upside down trying to figure out how to insert something into their mouth to control their airway. It's weird, but it's fun. And for everyone else that's watching, it's just like, oh my gosh, look at that. While we're getting the most incredible adrenaline rush, doing these things to people. Scary stuff, but incredibly fun. And difficult and frustrating sometimes when you're not able to get it done. But it makes a cool campfire story as you're able to hear me get all excited about when I'm talking about it. Well, if anybody's out there, I'm out of here. Guys, as you were, Josh, Karen, Lakshana, I know is already gone. Creed had to go. The rest of you, girl in the mirror, she went to sleep. And yeah, the rest of you, past and present. Ria, thank you. And yeah, Aiden and the rest of you guys. Awesome. Later, guys. See you, girl. I see you're still awake. Talk to you soon. Bye, guys.